Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Transport Talks with Ejiro. Yeah, and I have with me my colleague. He's actually in the background. Who is Femi? Femi, can you just quickly say hi?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Okay, so that's great. Thank you so much. And all right, so I want to say thank you once more for wherever you're joining us from. I know it's been a busy week, so I hope we have an interesting conversation about what you're why. So once again, you're welcome wherever you're joining us from. And we're still on the matter of inclusion. So our last episode focused on inclusion, and we had speakers from diverse countries, I think from Ghana, from Cameroon and Nigeria. Yeah, that's good. So and our speakers said something quite interesting, especially the health practitioners. They mentioned that inclusion or a non-inclusive transport system does not only affect us mentally, also affects our body, and also mentioned to us that it does not only affect people with special needs, but it also affects be able to, in terms that in the long run it can lead to a form of disability. And they also make us understand that transportation in congested cities can cause stress, and this stress are kind of like triggers to like anxiety, mental health disorder, and so on. And for those of us that live in congested cities, for example in Lagos, when you hear people say the word of how do you cope with the stress of living in Lagos, in actual fact what they mean is, how do you cope with spending hours in traffic, like going to work, you can spend 3 to 4 hours, then coming back also spend the same hours. So this kind of things actually are not good for individuals, and also it's not good for the society. So we are still on inclusion today, and today we're supposed to have 3 speakers, and we're expecting the last speaker. So our first speaker we have now is we have Daniel, and Daniel is an economics, and he also an alumni of Leeds Business School. So Daniel will be joining us today and telling us some part of like his own perspective as an economist, and also in terms of policy. We also have with us Kemi. Kemi, she works with the Nigeria Association of the Blind. So she'll also be giving, and she's also an advocate. So she'll be giving us her personal experience and also as an advocate. So people keep saying inclusion that maybe it's for only people with disability, but no. There are many reasons why people can face exclusion. Age, for example. So if people that are elderly, so people that are kind of like elderly, they'll face some kind of transport issues in terms of maybe the bus not, or maybe the vehicles do not fit their needs. Or people that maybe gender, for example, women with kids, or women that are pregnant, or even income, for example, maybe transport services are so expensive to access. Or even location. So for example, there are some places where some buses do not sell, maybe because they feel that those areas are not profitable. Or maybe the areas are not safe in terms of security, or maybe it's a ghetto area, so no, we cannot use that. Because I remember an example when of someone saying that when they use and book an Uber, the Uber tells them that they cannot go to a certain location because of the safety in that area. So there are many reasons why we face different kind of exclusion. So today, as we discuss, I hope we all share ideas and also learn from our speaker, and also our speaker learn from you, because the aim is to shape our transport ecosystem. So before we go on to our speakers, I would like to understand our audience. So I'm going to just ask you briefly to help me do something very quickly. I need you to go to your browser and try to access this site. It's called menti.com. Can you see my screen? Can you just quickly go to menti.com, and once you are there, just let me know. I should give you like maybe a minute to do that. Just quickly go to menti.com and enter that code 5362870. So can you please fill in that platform? Let's see. So a lot of people say others or work. Okay. And so what are you going to say? Major reasons of using transport service? Just work. So nobody's going to school. Okay. No one's. Okay, work. Others. So no one's going to school, business, shopping. So I'll leave it open for the next 10 seconds to see if anybody have any different opinion. Okay. So we can see that most of our audience are kind of workers. Okay, that's great. Then this next one, so the next one is, so still go to the same site. So if you are still on the same site, you should see this too. I'm sharing my screen now. Mention 3 reasons why people experience exclusion in transportation. So e.g. age, disability, etc. So can you just quickly just do that and let's see the response. So just quickly go to menti.com and type in 5362870 and this question will pop up. So let's see what people have to say. Can you just quickly go there? I'm sorry for that inconvenience, but it's a way to make this section very interactive. Okay, people say location, disability, yeah, it's coming up. And okay, age, all right. So location is like more popular, then disability is more popular, gender, okay. So whatever reasons you think people experience, so maybe you. I should leave this open for the next 30 seconds. So let's see. Physical appearance, okay. Please, the code is go to www.menti.com, then type in the code 5362870. Yeah. Okay. So location and disability are kind of like the major ones so far. Poverty. Wow, that's interesting. I think if you think about it, in one way or the other, we all face or might have faced some form of exclusion, if you want to really think about it. So, but the one that is actually projecting right now is the location, disability, and age. Wow, so that is quite interesting. Okay, so thank you for this contribution. I'll be closing this now, and so we can now head straight to our speakers. Okay, so this goes to Louise. Femi, could you please help me with the slide? Let me quickly introduce Louise before we go straight. Yeah. So Louise Aluta, yeah, so she is a disability and inclusion expert, and she has worked on several projects. So Louise, I want to say thank you for taking the time out this evening to join us. And if you're okay, turn on your camera, that'll be nice. Yeah, thank you. So from the what we just experienced now, from the word cloud, we looked at, we saw 3 popular issues in terms of, I think, location, gender, and disability. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was the one that popped up so well. So and we all know that, yes, we hear about policies, transport that help inclusion, or people say they are not policies, people say they are policies, but I want to start with Louise. So Louise, so forgive me that I'm putting you on the spot. You've had experience with some experience, and you also know about the stuff. So, but what do you think, in your own perspective now, what do you think is a missing link between these policies, if there are, and what is in practice? You can use your personal experience, and you can also share ideas on maybe from projects you've worked on in the past. So, Louise, to start with you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Yeah. On this topic, very important topic, we need to talk about accessibility. It's not how we will talk about transportation without talking about accessibility. In Nigerian's Disability Act that was passed in 2019, we have a provision on accessibility. How is our transport systems, our airports, our roads, how are they accessible to users with disabilities, commuters with disabilities? Article 9 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities states the right of persons with disabilities to access infrastructures. Are we really putting things in place to accommodate the needs of persons with disabilities? I traveled to US several times, and I have seen how accessible their walkways, their roads, the traffic systems, their buses, their taxis, airports, everywhere I was independent. When I want to cross the road, I can do it independently. Just to click that button at the traffic light. And everybody will stop for me to cross. If I want to board a car, a bus, or taxi, they have special cars with remote control, with ramps. So I can wheel in with my wheelchair without any hitches. Is it to board a plane? Is it at the airport? Is it their trains? Everywhere is accessible in the US. I've been to Arizona, Washington, DC, California, and which state again? I think about 4 states. And these 4 states and New York that I've traveled to, I have not seen anywhere that is not accessible. So we need to bring that model to Nigeria. It's so sad that things are not going well as it should. The first time I traveled out, I wept for my country. Yes. We need to bring that model. Let's start the sensitization campaign. Some of them are already aware, but they don't want to do it. And the Disability Act provided 5 years, 3 years gone. I don't know how we can make it happen for 1 year plus. CCD celebrated 3 years, this 18 and 19 January, because the bill was passed, I think on the 17th, yes, 17, 2019, January 17, 2019. So it's 3 years already. Transportation sector is very important to persons with disabilities because we move around on daily basis. We need to make it inclusive and accessible. Thank you for asking, Ejiro.
Thank you so much. Yeah, because the truth is, I don't want to be a bit sounding like partial, but even for the able person, the transport is not even inclusive because, for example, I remember some experience. Let me use Lagos for example. Most times the buses don't stop for you. Like that's just the informal buses now. They don't stop for you. You have to chase after the buses, because they want to get more passengers. So imagine someone with a kid or a woman that is heavy, or maybe someone with an elderly person that has a walking support aid. They cannot even chase after the bus. So it's actually maybe I won't say I weep with you, but yeah, it's a funny situation. So Daniel, so you are the policy of the economics, yeah. So Kemi, maybe we'll get back to you later, okay? Let's just work with Daniel now. So Daniel, you are the economics, and I think you have some ideas. So I just have 2 questions because Louise just made it known that there's a Disability Act, which I'm not even sure a lot of people are aware of. So, but let's come to the transport now. Do you think there are policies, first of all, that ensure inclusion? Now, I want you to speak in general. Disabled persons, women, elderly, poverty, just poor people. Just speak in general, okay? Do you think there are inclusion policies that include them, or they are not? And even if there are, what's the process? What do you think is the issue in making a policy and transferring to the people that will benefit from it? So you can also use your experience. So yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ejiro, for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
We'll make some comments. I thank God for bringing Lois into the panel. She made a lot of points. To be honest, I knew about a policy in terms of inclusion in Nigerian space, but to be honest, we have always had one problem in Nigeria. Is the problem of the synergy between the legislative arm, the executive arm, and implementers, which are mostly the civil service in the government space. And when we talk about inclusion also, like focusing more on transportation, it's really a huge scope, and it contributes very hugely to it's a very significant arm of the economy, because without mobility, there's no way the economy, like say goods or services, can reach to those who need it. Very important. One of the huge problem we have is one of the comments she makes about availability or accessibility of transportation, and then who are in demand of transport. That's one thing we should ask. Is it just the government, or is it just the people living in the north, or is it just the let's say the Hausas or the Igbos in Nigeria who are really in need of transportation? Is it something that everyone needs, regardless of age, gender, and then what have you? So if we answer this question clearly, we believe that everybody needs transportation. So first, making policy is fundamental, but transmitting policy through the implementation phase is more fundamental. So you cannot make policies on papers and then come down and there's not apt transmission. I've stayed in Europe for a while and I've seen how things are done. I've used the BRT and I've seen a lot of, when she was talking, I could just see myself in her shoes. But to be honest, well, the reality back home is not what we're experiencing, to be honest. So when we talk about, she spoke about bringing back the model home. We have seen a lot of things. Our politicians and policymakers are well traveled around the world. But to be honest, they come here and come back home. We don't see the evidence that yes, they have actually interfaced with this part of the world. So I think there's a big gap and it needs to be addressed, because the issue of inclusion is fundamental. Talking about whether one is disabled, whether one is gender-based, whether it's terms of region, we need to make policies that capture the mobility needs of all Nigerians. But I also want to make a point here. To be honest, when we talk about also meeting the needs, there's a limit. When we talk about the kind of technology that we have here in this part of the world, she's talking about how she could enter that kind of bus with just some kind of remote sensing and all that. We don't have it in Nigeria. We don't have those technology in place at the moment. So we have a very big, huge task at hand. Talking about we need to work very hard on these things. Mobility is very important. It's fundamental. And there's a huge, actually, when I saw this topic, I was wondering how should I talk about it? Where should I start from? But I believe that it's something that we need to really be on top of. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Before we go back to Kemi, I think Louise and Dana, you can actually respond to this. I know Louise and Kemi persons living with disability, but I want us to be like kind of more accommodative, because there are other people here that do not have physical disability, but they also experience exclusion in transport. So I want to ask both of you. So Louise, you can speak from your own perspective, and Daniel also you can speak from your perspective. Also, Kemi, you can also join in if you want to. Do you think when they make these policies, do you think they just make it holistically, or do they prioritize different needs when they make it? Or do you think, do you understand my point? I'm trying to put this together, because somebody said something in the last episode. They said they just, because of you're all disabled, they just pack you all together. They don't like disability have diverse needs. So now imagine, so when they make these policies in terms of transfer policies, they look at, they don't consider, do you think they should make it, they look at different needs, like people that are poor or people that are aged or people, or they just make it holistically? Maybe that's part of the problem, we don't know. So what do you think policy can also contribute to? So yeah.
As a policymaker, when you make policy, first thing you make policy with a target audience in mind. Okay. So I believe when we make policy with inclusion, it was because we identified that in the society there are some segment in society or some particular people in the society who are excluded in some kind of service, let's say benefits in which the society is supposed to be, or the governance is supposed to be offering. So because of this, I think that motivated the need for such policy. And then for making a policy with inclusion, I think what she was talking about in 2019, the act, I think it focused more on the disabled people. But today, if you want to go to the west, northwest or northeast, you can still go to the marketplace and still find this unique set of people in code, disabled people. I don't like calling them disabled people because they are not disabled, they are people full of potentials. You see them on the road walking and falling and all that. You can see the experience is very bad. Sometimes you get emotional when you see them, and you can see how they stay there begging and all that. And these are people, if they are well, if their potential are well harnessed, they can do great things in the society. You see them wasting away, their potential wasting away, very intelligent people. So I believe that governance, I think we have issue. We have a lot of synergy issue in our governance, in the executive arm, the legislative arm, and then most critically, I'm always in a school of thought that I believe that Nigeria has very powerful and very good policies on papers. But the problem is the institutions who are meant to implement these policies. Let me be straight up with everyone. It's the civil service. The civil service for me, and I am accountable to my statement, I contribute to 50% of the problem we have in Nigeria. I'm telling you, because when the resources are dispersed through the budget or wherever, the civil service are the one meant to implement these policies, either giving contract to who or who is coming forward. So the issue is not that we don't have intelligent people in the country. We have people who have gone there, were exposed. But the problem is that when we bring this thing on decks and then we are to start doing these things, for instance, like a good policy maker will always make a policy and also have a term for achievement. For instance, maybe 2 years or 3 years, and she said 5 years. This is just the third year and nothing is being done. So these are critical issues, and then we need to really hold our leaders accountable. Civil society have to start working hard on their duties and all that. Yeah. Thank you.
I think I need to go back to Louis. Louis, you mentioned a point that the Disability Act is 5 years, and in 3 years is gone, and they haven't achieved much. How far, do you think? What do you think they have done, and what do you think is still left to be done?
Yes, what needs to be done is to keep reminding the key stakeholders to put things in place. For instance, banking halls. Persons with disabilities have money in the bank, but they don't have access to it, especially those with problems with mobility, physical challenge persons. They find it difficult to access banking halls. Most times they ask them to stay outside and they call an officer to attend to them. And it's not right, it's derogatory. We need to do things right. If I have money in your bank and I cannot have access to it, it does not have sense. So as for me, I always advocate any bank I'm using, they must give me access. I always refused not to be attended outside. I said I have every right to be inside. So most often, they open their back door for me because I'm a wheelchair user. They open their back door for me to go in. That back door is for security staff or confidential staff that manages money. But I told them I cannot be attended outside. If not, I'll close my account. And they have listing all the branches I'm transacting businesses with. They are accessible to me. So we also need to tell persons with disabilities to know their rights. Some of them don't know their rights. And if you don't know your rights, you cannot ask questions. And secondly, our schools. Children with disabilities cannot attend schools due to inaccessibility. They need to move around from their homes to the school and from the school back home. How do they move around independently? Because we are talking about transport accessibility here. Wow. Section 2, 3, and 4 of the Nigerian Disability Act talks about accessibility to roads, to buildings, to offices, parks and gardens, and the rest. We should keep reminding our stakeholders not to forget about the 5 years that federal government has given to them to ensure 5% reservation of employment and training opportunities for PWDs, to ensure transport systems are accessible, to also ensure that the provisions in that act are provided.
Great contribution from Daniel and Luis. And so I want to open to the audience now. So what do you think should be done? And what's your opinion, or do you have any experience that you think you want us to know about? So while we wait for the audience to ask questions and make their contribution, I did a recent research on, I think it's called Inclusion EU as a project, and I realized that they did some like pilot study or pilot testing in a rural area in Scotland called Carigum National Park. Yeah, so I think somehow they have what they call like locational geographical exclusion. So what they did was that they did like a public-private partnership bike share, whereby the residents can actually use this bike share to access opportunities, because you know there are some areas that are lowly served. Of course, once a transport company is like more private, you want to go to where you can make returns or make profit. Then I also heard about, I read about a place in Belgium. It's called the Flanders region. So, and they made an app for vulnerable users whereby the elderly can book a volunteer ride sharing driver. So it's like a ride sharing scheme. So people volunteer to assist vulnerable groups. So I from what I understood, I think there are some, each need differs. So there should be policies that should be more specific, which can help them to achieve what they need to achieve. Because I remember the last speaker in the first episode, they mentioned one thing, that they just make one law, or you just make a law and expect everybody to just expect to work for everybody, which is not possible. So I think that was quite insightful from what I read. So let me go back to our speakers. And before I do that, I want to say I have some people here, some of my lecturers and supporters and colleagues. I want to say thank you for joining us. I also want to recognize the ITS UK Secretary, Jenny Martins. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate that. Okay. So.
Greetings, speaker. How are you?
Oh, hi. We're speaking, please.
You're speaking to Mukodeni Mbobo Mutige. It's my first time joining you guys today. I'm a minibus taxi researcher in South Africa.
Okay, great. So, thank you.
Yeah, things like I heard what the previous speaker and your opening, what you guys were saying, but I kind of feel that if you look at the policies, if you look at the policies, they are adopted from an international level, whereby you find that in Africa, for example, if you look at the population in Lagos, in Lagos alone, in Nigeria, it's 15.2 million, and if you look at the population in Washington D.C., where the previous speaker said no, transport there is accessible. If you look at the population there and you look at the population in Lagos, it's two different things. So it makes it very very difficult for us as in Africa to adopt policies. So I feel that if we had resources, for example, if you come to South Africa, you'd find that we've got the minibus taxi industry that's not subsidized, and you've got the bus industry and the train industry that's subsidized. You would find that those two means of transport that are subsidized, they give a much better service to the disabled than your minibus taxi industry that's not subsidized.
Okay, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. But I want to mention something. You talked about the population in Lagos, yeah, and also in the developed world. Now the issue is this with what they call policy transfer. You don't just move a policy from A to B. It doesn't work like that. I think our policy maker needs to be conscious that there are some key factors you need to consider why a policy will not work or why a policy should be tweaked. So look at geographical location, look at resources, even look at the behavior of the people, because the behavior of the people is not the same in another region. So yeah, you are right. You don't just move a policy. You need to understand your location, your resources, the people you're working with, and also even it's a whole package. So yeah, I agree with your point. There's a question on the chat, and the question says, okay, it's from Jenny Martin. She said, thank you so much for a very informative discussion. If you're interested in working in the UK, inclusively from where we look at how you can assist disabled and invalid travelers, drop me a line. Okay, she dropped her email. She's the ITS UK secretary. So if you want to know more about inclusion for disabled and elderly, you can use her email. It's called jmartins@its-uk.org.uk. Then there's another question here that says, do you agree that having more disabled people working on transport policy and implementation is key to making progress? And Lutza, can you answer that, or any other person in the chat? Do you agree that having more disabled persons working on transport policy and implementation is key to making progress?
Yeah, it's very key. So coming to that actually, we are talking about people with the primary effects of what we're discussing, inclusion. These are people who have had this, who have largely been marginalized in some kind of in receiving some kind of services. So it is apt that yes, if policies must integrate or represent all, their voices must be heard. It is very key that we hear the voices that also part their stakeholders in this. So it's fundamental to have them on board, to know what they are going through and what they want.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to add to that, Louise? Any other person before we move to the next question? Forgive me, we'll just take extra 8 minutes more just to attend the question, please. So any other response to that? Ume, do you want to say something?
Hello, good day.
Yeah, good day. Thank you.
I said I want to support the last speaker on his assertion, and also want to maybe add or modify to it. When you make policies that concerns people, most times the policymakers themselves don't experience these things.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you look at, let's say for example, gender inequality, and you want to make policies, you find out that more than, I think, 4% of Nigerian legislators are female. So you want to make policies that are going to affect the people. You have 90-something percent of the policies
a very good point.
that does not concern them. So there is what we call empathy in decision making, where you want to make policies or you want to do something, you have to put yourself in the person's shoes, first of all. So in order to do that, I think, the voices must be heard in a way, but being heard is not just enough. They have to be part of the process of decision making, because you can just you can hear their voices and finally bring out something that does not include them. So every step of policy making, from the initial stage of brainstorming to the final stage, they should be included. They should even be proofread what is going to be made policy before it is being made, because it has to. So yes, they are fundamental piece in policy making. I just wanted to add to what he said. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I want to read them Kemi's comment. Kemi said, when it comes to transportation structures, it is not just a head thinking factor. Rather, gathering the stakeholders to ensure the needs of every cluster is factored. It's factored in with samples from global users. Yes, nothing for us without us. Okay? It makes the construction smooth. There are persons who wears the shoe and can tell you from the perspective of the end users and how best it can best suit their needs. So I think that's what Ugo just mentioned. So yes, thank you so much. I just want to conclude with this. Do you have any more questions if I just conclude with this? From the user, any contribution, any question? Okay, I know time is fast spent. Yeah, okay, yeah. So I was reading the paper from Janice. She's also a consultant and she's focused on inclusion, and she has done a lot of studies in Africa. And one of the papers she did for, I think, about 5 African countries, they mentioned that it's high time policymakers or government stop looking at transport or the vehicle or the infrastructure. You should rather look at the people involved. So make it like a more people-centric. So when you understand the people involved, you can now know what their needs are. Because not just making vehicles or making roads. If you make roads and it's not being used, then what's the point? So I think, that's actually a good perspective from the paper. So I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us. And we apologize for spending more than 45 minutes. So I want to say to our speakers, Daniel and Louis and Kemi, just one last words before we call it a night.
I will end my own sentence on this. Like I say, the 4 A's. Like, for policy to be inclusive, we must first solve the problem of availability of transportations. Okay, availability of transportation to all regardless, and then talking about accessibility also transportation. Also look at issues of affordability and then acceptability. These are things that are fundamental to be able to capture, talk about inclusiveness. It captures all of it. And so
you mean accessibility, affordability, acceptability, and what the last one?
Availability.
Availability. Okay, thank you.
I said the 4 A's. Sorry.
Oh, okay, the 4 A's. Thank you. Luciana, please. Kemi said, my message is always think outside the box. Okay. All right. Luciana, do you have any last words? So I'm going tonight. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a long day, and we hope to see you on our last episode of Inclusion, which will happen next month. And we're also working on a blog or website whereby we can have all this published. And there's also a YouTube channel where you can go and watch, maybe just to get ideas and make comments. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a good night. Thank you.